So let's get down to the good stuff now. Let's actually build some of this stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got our Lambda function. We're going to create our lattice pieces in the provider network. Okay. So I'm going to close down a couple of these files just to keep it a little simpler. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, what do we want to call this? Let's just call it lattice / provider. And this is where we'll build out our template. So I'm just going to do, again, a little cheater start here. And we're going to say deploy lattice resources in provider VPC. Okay. And these are our standard tags. I'm going to take this out for the time being until we need it. And then we'll delete all the resource definitions. We'll do the same for outputs. Okay. So nothing fancy there. And now what we'll do is we'll start working on the important stuff. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is build out our service network. So let me find this. Just bigger so I can see what I'm doing on the CloudFormation documentation. Okay. And we're just going to call this demo lattice service network. Our type is AWS VPC Lattice service network. Okay, like that. And some of these definitions are actually quite simple. One of the nice benefits of Lattice is the fact that you've got very granular control over the network communication, right? Like you couldn't hear me as I was talking, but the service network associations, those are going to govern who or what can talk to it. But in addition to sort of those associations that you're going to do, you've also got the something called an auth policy. I'm going to leave the auth policy off for now, but we're going to come back to it later. And the auth policy is, if you've ever written policy documents, permissions documents in identity and access management, IAM, you're familiar with these. They are slightly different, but like I said, if you've written those other types of docs, you'll get onto this in no time flat. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a placeholder here, and we're just going to call it add an auth policy example. Okay. So we're going to come back to that one. We need to give this a name. I'm going to use another intrinsic function, and we're going to build this out based on we're going to call this CFN Wednesday Lattice. Okay, that's our application name in our example. So what we'll do is we're going to do this. We're going to use, all right, like this. And we're going to jam in the environment name. Okay, so a little more dynamic. This way we don't have to hard code everything. And then we're just going to call this, we'll do, did I put Lattice in the service name? I think I did. I did. Okay, so I don't want to duplicate that. So we're just going to say service network, right? Now I have to add application here. This should be a tag parameter. So we'll say application type is string. All right, so that's that. And then all we're going to do for now, we're going to keep these to the bare minimum, at least at the beginning, to get them all built out. And if you've ever watched these streams before, you know how this is going to go, right? I like to tag these stuff, all the resources with a standard set of tags I use all the time. right? And just because we put the application tag in here now, we'll do the same thing. All right, we'll just add it here. Okay, perfect. So that's our service network. And I think I'm going to do this step by step, just because I don't want to get too far along and then realize we have an error and not be able to easily figure out what the heck it is I did wrong. Okay, so we're going to jump back to our CI script, and we're going to run just the built-in template validation. I just want to make sure I got the path right. It is networking lattice / provider. Okay, and we're working in the provider account, so I'll go to our include statement, and I'm just going to steal all of this. And we're going to say provider lattice. We can leave all this the same. I know this is duplicating names in our stack, but that's what we'll call that. Oh, and you know what? The other thing is we don't need VPC stack anymore, but now I need to pass in application as well. Okay. So really all we're doing here is we're just creating that container, right? The service network itself. So let's deploy this. Let's call it a feature. Push that. And then let me just jump back over, make sure I'm logged in here. Give me a sec. All right, so here's our pipeline. And it failed. Imagine that. So what did I do wrong? It didn't even make it past validation. Unrecognized. Oh, so I've got a spelling mistake. Oh, look what I did. I must have picked that autocomplete in my ID, picked that up, I think, somewhere. Let's just fix that. Yeah, see this should be, that's fine. It auto-completed this. This should just be service network like that. Okay. Okay. Over here. See if we make it a little further here. There we go. All right, so what this is going to do, assuming that it deploys properly, is it's going to generate change sets in the accounts, and we'll use that to then go and deploy our templates. Okay. Oh, we got an error. Did do wrong. Oh, this is the problem with when I cut and paste that template. Okay, lattice provider. What did I do wrong? Oh, look at, I created our new job definition, but I left the old path, so it's expecting the VPC stack for the security group. Let's see how we do this time. All right, so it's potentially running. Oops. Okay, so here's our new stack. And we'll look at the change set. There should just be our service network. Okay, so it's brand new. Let's add that. Easy, okay? If we open up the VPC console, Down the left-hand side, we will see service networks. And here's our new service network. Okay. So if we just look at the details of this, it has no service associations. We're going to work on that in a minute. Resource configurations are another feature that allows us to point to things like RDS databases and things like that. We won't worry about that in this demo. Endpoints we talked about, even though you couldn't hear me. You know, yeah, fun times. And then VPC Association. So clean slate at this point. No services defined. If we had a resource config, we could see it here, right? Really not much to see here for now. Here's our auth policy. There is no auth policy by default. You have to set it up. So I'll show you how to do this. Built-in monitoring. So service networks as well as services. This is another really important aspect of Lattice is it gives you lots and lots of really great log information about who is accessing your service networks, the services within them, and the types of requests, the outcome of those requests. It's written to several different logs. So we'll set this up as well. I talked about sharing, and then we've got our tags. Okay. So pretty basic at this point, right? Simple stuff. Go back to the IDE. And the next thing we want to add, got too many of these files open. So we've got our service network. The next thing we need to add is the actual service. So let's do that. I don't know why I put demo in front of it, but we're kind of, we've gone down this path now. So I'm going to call it demo lattice service. Service, we'll make sure it doesn't autocomplete that. Okay, so now we can define the actual properties. Again, the service network and the service both have the ability to have those auth types, those IAM policy documents. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy this. And we're going to put this down here. So if the way I think about it, if you wanted to think of an analogy for this, you've got, when you're thinking about a VPC, you have a network access control list or a NACL, and you've got security groups. NACLs operate at the subnet level, and they govern traffic coming or flowing into or out of all resources within the subnet or subnets that NACL is associated with. And then security groups are a layer below, right? If you've ever taken an AWS architecting on AWS class, you'll often hear this term multiple layers of defense. So you've got the NACL operating at the subnet level, and then you've got the security group operating at the elastic network interface level. So it's protecting resources within the subnets, right? You could use the same analogy for the auth policy associated with the service network. This is at the top level, and it provides you with general coverage. And I'll show you an example of that later on. And then you've got the auth policy a layer lower that is associated to the actual service. So multiple layers of protection are possible. Okay. It also supports things like certificates. You can set up your own custom domain names if you needed on these services. We're not going to do that today. We're gonna let Amazon do that for us. And I think all we really need in our simple example here is very similar to what we've done up here. I'm going to copy all of this. So what do we got? 10 lines. Okay, and I'm going to call this service, and we're going to leave all this the same. Okay. Now, one of the things that's a little different about this compared to other services, a lot of times, like if you're thinking about, because I used the security group example, right? You deploy in CloudFormation, you deploy an EC2 instance or an RDS database, and then you associate it to a security group. And you can do that right in the EC2 template, right? Just basically say, hey, here's the list of security groups that I want you to associate to this. The Lattice service is a little different. You'll notice in here, if you look at the documentation for this, there is no sort of way that I can't go in here and just go like something like right? Like this is something that you might do in your security group example, something like that. So that doesn't exist. So what you need to do instead is you need to do this. I'm going to say demo service association. This is another type definition within. It's another resource we're going to define. And again, a lot of these they're relatively simple to do. So we're going to say AWS VPC Okay, so this is a service network association. Let me just make sure that I got that right. Service network. Oh, see, service network service association. Missing a word like that. Okay. And then what we have to do, and again, you can do some fancy stuff in here, but all we're going to do today is say service identifier. And I'm just going to, I didn't spell that right, like that. I'm going to put a placeholder there. And then we need a service network identifier. And again, we'll put a placeholder there. And it is also taggable. So I'm going to grab standard set of tags and dump them there. Okay. So now all we need to do is we need to pass the service identifier for our service, and we need to pass the identifier for our service network. Now, I don't remember these off the top of my head, so let me just look at what the return values are for this. Okay, so we need to use a get attribute for this. So we're going to do get attribute demo lattice service dot ID. Because it wants, let me just make sure, let me show you what I'm looking at in this case, because there is a fair number of bits and pieces to this one. Maybe try that again. Okay. So if I make this a little different, so see, this is what I'm creating right now, the service network association. And if we look at this, just get rid of this since we're writing YAML. So you can see what I mentioned. We need the service identifier. And you see here, oh, it'll take either the ID or the ARN. And this is the ID or the ARN. So actually, it's easier if we go back here and we look at the return values. The ref on a service network returns an ARN. And is the service the same? Yeah, okay. So we can actually use ref for this. Let's go back. And all we're going to do right? And then we'll do the same thing here. Whoops. Demo service network. So what this little chunk of code is doing is it's associating the service with the service network. Okay. Okay, and before I forget, I keep meaning to do this. We're going to create a branch. I'm just going to call it so if you go back to our pipeline, okay, so that's all good. Back to there. We need to be in our provider, which is here. Also signed out. Give me a sec. I had to look at my cheat sheet again. I forget. Provider is the demo account. So we're back to CloudFormation. Oh, yeah. And we're also in US East 1. Yeah. So we should have a change set for this. And this change set will have our service with our service association. All right, let's see if we got that working. Okay. Created our service, and we managed to get this associated, hopefully. There we go. All right, so if we go back to VPC. And we go back to our service networks. There should be one minor change. We now have a service associated with this service network. So if we go here, here's our new service definition. Remember, I've said a couple times that in the documentation, you can create your own custom DNS names if you would like. Okay, we're not doing that. We're just using the ones that Amazon provided. So custom is empty. There is the domain name for our new service. If I go here and just open up Cloud Shell, let's make this a little, oh, okay, it's already the largest. So if I do, if I ping that domain, it resolves. You'll notice it's using a 169.254 address. Okay, there's a name for this. I can't remember what it's called. It's a special block, but it basically means it's non-routable. Okay, but we can resolve it, but we can't route to this until we associate our VPCs with this service network. Okay, so like if I did something like, we don't have this whole thing built yet, but like if I did something like this, right? So connect fail, it's unreachable. And it's unreachable because, this is a silly example, but we don't have that service association at this point. Okay, so that's that part. All right, so that's that. Let's go and look at our cheat sheet here to see what else we need to do. So we've created our service network, and we created our service. If you've ever used load balancers or anything like that, this is the thing that I found interesting about Lattice, is that there's a lot of new terms and concepts. Like they've changed the names of some things, but if a lot of this will feel familiar to you if you've built things in AWS like load balancers and stuff like that. So we've got a service network with a service definition defined. There is no target for that service though, right? Like the question is, okay, let's say you can get to that, the service itself. The problem is, like, how do you know where to route that traffic? So this is really no different than a load balancer deployment, right? You create your load balancer, and then you create one or more target groups in that load balancer, and then you use rules. You know, if you're going to slash, go this way. If you're going to slash test, go that way. Okay, so you can take those same concepts if you're familiar with them and apply them to VPC Lattice. So let's do that part now. Okay. All right. So to do that, we need to create a target group. Okay. So the target group, very similar to what we've done before, is the nice thing about this is a lot of the logical resources that you're going to create, the property definitions within them are, there's no huge, it's not like you're using, if you've ever tried to build an EC2 template in CloudFormation or an EC2 instance in CloudFormation, there's like a list like this long, right, of all the different possible properties that you can define. What I've noticed in this is a lot of the resource definitions are quite compact. There's not a lot to them. So we're going to create a VPC Lattice target group. Okay. And there's a couple things we have to do here. Let me pull this one up and we'll walk through it together. Okay. So here's our target group definition. The first thing is you have a config. I don't think we're going to really worry about the configuration a whole lot. We do need to maybe apply a couple things, but you can see here, health checks are not supported if your target group type is Lambda. That's what we're going to use. Okay. So you can see like a lot of these things we may or may not apply. Lambda doesn't apply, doesn't apply. So I think for version 1 of this, to get it working, what we're going to do is keep the target group definition to its bare minimum, okay, just to see if we can kind of wire all this together. So we're going to need a name, we're going to tag it, and then this is the most important part, the target. So we need to define our target. Okay, do we need to define this? If the target group is instance, the instance ID, the target group is Lambda, we need the ARN of the Lambda. Okay, that's easy enough. So let's go back to our ID and we'll wire this up. All right, so let's do name first. Oh boy. Oh, where was that? We had a name definition up here somewhere. So we're just going to yank this. And we'll do this, and we'll change this up. I generally use TG for target groups. We're going to say, oh, we've got tags, so we're going to make sure we tag all of this stuff. So we'll yank those lines, dump it here. And we're going to say targets. Actually, let's do a type definition first, which it supports a number of things, an IP address, a Lambda, or an instance. So we're going to say Lambda. And then we need that target definition. So this is going to be targets. Is it an array? Yeah. Isn't it? Let me check. Yeah. Describes a target. It's an array. Okay. So let's have a look at what we need here. We need an identifier. So I'm just going to call this, it's a string. So let's just do CFN Wednesdays Lambda target. And then it's asking for a port for HTTP. Yeah, it has a default port. So we're going to leave that alone. And then there was one other thing we had to do. Where was it? Name. Was it config we needed? Let's see. Missing something here. We looked at it together and then it left my mind. Remember there was where do we put the ARN for, because this is a Lambda function, right? Oh, sorry. I put a unique identifier. I was thinking of the load balancers. So in this case, the ID is the ARN of that Lambda function that we created earlier. So I'm going to hard code this for the time being, but you can imagine that, you know, depending on how you're deploying your Lambda function, you could pull this in dynamically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find that Lambda function. We're in the wrong place. We need to be over here. Get rid of Cloud Shell. Let's go Lambda. Here's our hello from Lambda function. And in here, it'll have the ARN right here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to modify this. Okay? And we're just going to say ref Lambda. Let's do demo Lambda ARN. And then we'll pass that as a parameter just to keep it a little. All right, so we're going to say demo Lambda ARN is a string, and we'll pass that in to our CI script. So I think that's it. Is there anything else we need? I don't think so. Okay, so that's our target group. And then in order to kind of, you know, how do we get to that target group? Like a load balancer, we need a listener. So let's see if we can define this now too. So we're going to call this demo service listener. Oops, keeps auto-populating that. Listener. Okay, so what do we need? We're going to need a default action, just like a load balancer. I'm going to put a placeholder for that. We need a name, so I'm just going to copy and paste again. So we'll call this a listener. We do need, I think we need a port in this one. Yeah, it's required, and it's either HTTP, HTTPS, or TLS. We could make this a parameter if we wanted, but it really isn't going to change a lot. So I'm gonna put HTTPS in there. We need the service identifier. So this is how we associate the listener with that service definition. So we're going to say service identifier, and we're going to use, it uses the ID or the ARN again. So I'm going to say demo Lattice service. And the nice thing about this is it all can be tagged. So we're going to yank 9 lines, I think, again. Oops. I don't know what I just did there. Hold on. I need 9 lines. Yank 9. Okay. Okay, so there's all of our tags again. So we've created our target group and then created a listener and associated that to our service, okay? And then just like a load balancer, we need a rule. So the rule definition. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing, didn't I? Let's go back to our target group and let me show you this one. And we'll figure out what we need for the config. Okay, so here's our target group. See this right here? This is where I put the placeholders. So this is just target config. Let's target group. Not supported for Lambda, so we don't care. Am I in the right place? I feel like I'm in the wrong place. Hold on. Oh no, it's very similar to the target group, but it is different. So we don't need to worry about our health check because it's not supported. IP address type, it's going to default to IPv4, so that's fine. Our Lambda event structure, the default is V1. We'll leave it as the default. The port, it's not supported for Lambda. The protocol, not supported for Lambda. The protocol version, not supported. Not supported. Easy, right? There's nothing we need there. So as far as I can tell, we can just go. I still feel like I'm looking at the wrong thing. Hold on. Yeah, I'm totally looking at the wrong thing. I'm having a night here. We were dealing with the listener. I'm looking at the target group. Let's go back up here. This is what we're after. So see this default action? All we're going to do is we're going to have a forward definition. We're essentially saying the listener will forward all the traffic to the target group, and then we have to define our target group. Target groups, target group matching, the rules forwarded to the source terms. The default value is 1. Describes a forward action. Okay, let's build this out bit by bit. So if we go back to IDE, so what they're saying is, let me find the listener piece. So our default action is going to be forward. Yeah, it's forward. Right? And then in our case, it describes a forward action. You can use forward actions to route requests to one or more of your target group. Weird. Let me show something. Right? And we need to forward this to our target groups. I love some of these CloudFormation definitions where they go like one layer deep, another layer deep, another layer deep. So I want to make sure I get the syntax of this correct. So this is now an array of weighted target groups, which have a target group identifier, which is what? It wants the ID of the target group. So we need to find the return values for our target group that we created earlier. Okay, so in this case, I think we need a get attribute demo service target group dot ID, because a ref here returns the ARN, and they are asking us for the ID in the configuration, in the documentation. So let's see, did I get everything that I needed for that? Default action, forward, or weighted target groups. Okay. Now there is a weight that you can put on here, but you only need the weight value if there are multiple target groups. And in our case, we just have one. So we don't have to worry about the weight. So let's do this. What did we add here? Oops. What did I do? Try that again. I saved that, right? Yep. Okay. So we added a listener plus a target group service definition. Okay. Now, since I pushed that to, oh, I didn't put onlys in my CI, so it's doing the deploy, the whole thing. Okay, so there's our provider definition. Let's go back over here. This guy should have another change set, I think. Oh, it failed. What'd we do wrong? Oh, yeah, remember I put that placeholder in and we didn't fill it out. So we gotta grab back here. We gotta go to our provider, and down here I have to say demo lambda ARN is something. We'll have to copy that again. And then here we'll say, okay, let me just grab that from the console again. Oops, that's going to mess up my copy. Hold on a sec. Try it again. There we go. Okay, so that's our Lambda function. So let's see if this works now. And we will go back to here. All right, that's a little better. we go. So we're creating our new listener and then associating that listener to a target group. So let's see. Hopefully there are no more typos in that template. Perfect. Good. So if we go back to, whoops, not CloudFormation, VPC, our service network. Okay. So here's our service association. So we already looked at that. If we go to Lattice services now, this guy, under routing, we'll have our listener. Just like a load balancer, we have rules. So all we created was the default rule. If no other rule applies, forward it to this target group. And this target group has a registered target of our hello world Lambda function. Okay. So that's perfect. Now, if we just want to test this again, if we go to Lattice services, remember we have no associations yet with this. So if I go, where is it? If we go here, here's our domain name for our Lattice service. And if we do the same thing, clear this and say curl-v. Okay, still network unreachable because we can resolve it, but we have no path, no network path to the function itself. Okay. So that's good there. Let's look at our cheat sheet. So we've created our target group. Oops. Okay. Associate the service network with our local VPC. So I created that provider VPC that we talked about earlier, right? Let's do this first. Let's go back over, because I know I'm testing this with what is it, Cloud Shell, and as I think about that, it's not going to do what I want. So we're going to do, actually, let's do this in a slightly different way. We're going to go back over here, and in our provider SG, I just created this little Lattice Lambda SG because I deployed that. Did we deploy that Lambda function? I don't think we deployed that Lambda function in a VPC. We'll check that in a second. I don't think I did. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to call this our EC2 SG. Okay. We don't need any ingress on this. So we'll leave it all blank like that. And then we're going to say EC2 SG. We're just going to export this. I don't know if we're going to need this anywhere, but I'll just export these values so we have it. EC2. Just noticing I used double quotes down here. I don't know why I did that. Let's just get it. Okay, so that's that. Let's deploy this first. Okay, while we're waiting for that, let's go back to Firefox. And let's check that Lambda function first, because I don't think, when I created this, I don't think I put it in a VPC. So we can go configuration, VPC. I didn't. Okay, so we're going to put this in a VPC. This is our VPC. We're going to deploy it in one of the private subnets. So there's our, doesn't matter which one. And then we're going to associate it to our Lambda Lattice SG. Has no inbound rules, and it has some outbound rules. We'll adjust this later when we need to, but we'll just fix that up. Provided execute role does not. Oh yeah, okay. So let's do this. Let's delete this. And we'll just create it again. So we'll say hello world. I don't even remember what I called the other one. Doesn't really matter. Lattice. Python, ARM, additional configs, enable VPC. There we go. This is what we want. Put it in there. Grab one of the private subnets again. Public, there's private. And then, oh, it says, okay, well, do we need two subnets for what we're doing? No, but we'll do that anyways. Okay, so we've got two subnets. That way, if one of the AZs were to fail, the Lambda function has access to the other AZ, and then we're going to associate it to our security group. Like I said, this isn't going to be great for us later on, but it'll at least create the function for now. Okay, that's better. So now if we look here, VPC, perfect. Now let's check our CloudFormation, see if we've got a security group update. We should. Oh, did I mess it up? I did. How can I mess up a copy and paste? EC2. Oh, I messed the output block up somehow. Oh, look what I did. This should be EC2 SG. Okay. This guy done. There we go. Okay, that's good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to deploy an EC2 instance in our VPC. So let's just create one. We'll call this CFN Wednesday Lattice demo. None of this really matters. We'll say ARM processor. Oops. We'll leave it as a T4G Nano. We're not going to use a key pair. We're going to use an existing security group. So we're going to make sure it's in the private subnet. That's good. And we'll use this one, EC2. Okay. Now I'm hoping, yeah, okay. So I'm going to use just an instance profile to get access to this. You can see I was teaching a class a couple weeks ago and I left these roles here. So all this is going to do is basically make SSM available for this guy. I think this actually would be something interesting to see because I'm not sure about the networking that we have set up in this demo VPC. We'll leave all this the same. While we're waiting for this, let's have a look. So see this is a subnet it's in. I can't remember. This is the provider VPC. It won't have a route to the internet. All right, so if we go back here and there's this handy little resource map, you'll notice internet gate. Oh, it does. The provider VPC. I didn't think that I did that in the provider VPC. I must have rotated this. We might fix these, but this will we'll use for our test. I thought I was going to have the provider with the Lambda function has no internet access, and then the consumer will have internet access. We can fix that later. Okay. So that's fine. Our EC2 instance should come to life. And in theory, because of the way I've got the routing set up, yeah, session manager works. Okay. And if we do the same thing, if we get the service, where is it? Details, our domain name, we go back to this EC2 instance, we ping that, we can resolve it, okay? And then if we do a curl, right? Network is not reachable because we don't have that association. So let's fix this association. So what we want to do now, actually, before I go on, let's just check our to-do list. And I'm going to do this cheat sheet, okay? The provider VPC. All right, and then what we'll have to do is, because I'm using something like Systems Manager, okay, so we'll add those later. So if we go back over here, what we now need to do is associate our service network with our Lambda function. So let's do that part next. Let me just find this. Again, it's like I said a couple times, these associations, or these sort of resource definitions, are relatively painless for the most part. Okay. So all we need is a security group. Okay. You don't have to do this. We're going to leave it off for now, but this is another example of this idea of multiple layers of protection. So we're going to add a security group later on, but we'll leave it off for now. We need the identifier for our service network and the identifier for our VPC. And I think the identifier for our VPC should just be a VPC ID. Yeah, okay. So if we go back to here. So we're just going to say demo service VPC Association. Okay. And I already forget what we said we needed. Let me just cheat with the documentation in the background. We said we're not going to worry about security groups, so I'm just going to put a to-do here. Add security group later for more protection. Okay, we'll come back to that one later. We need our service network identifier, and we'll just put the placeholder in it. We need our VPC identifier. We'll do the same thing, and then we'll just copy these tags. Okay, so our standard set of tags. This we're going to import. Remember, I was talking to myself at this point, but because I don't know how to unmute myself. But the very beginning of the stream, I talked about using those import values. So where exports or outputs from one stack become outputs become inputs. There we go. Okay. This is where we're going to use that input value, and I'm going to copy it because I don't remember the intrinsic function to do that. I can never keep that in my head. I'm going to copy that from the other location. But this service network identifier we've already done, and this is the ID or the ARN. And I think in the past, we've just used a ref, and then we're going to say service. Oops. I think it's demo, right? Demo. Oh, it's this one. I'm looking right at it. That guy. Demo Lattice Service Network. Okay, so we'll save that. And then I'll show you what I mean. If I go over to here, see this little line, FN, so functions. This is an intrinsic function, import value, and we're going to pull in some information from our VPC stack. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to go back over here and I'm going to paste it. Oh, sorry. That's got to be VPC identifier like that. Now to get this, I need to add this. So I'm going to go up here and go stack parameters. And I'll just call it VPC stack. Oops. Okay. And I'll show you how this works in a second. So I'm basically just going to name the stack. And then if you look at this, this is just pulling in an exported value from our VPC stack as an import value. And I'll show you where I'm getting this from. So if we go and we look at the, where is it now? Networking, Lattice, SG, right here. So if you scroll to the bottom and you look at outputs, right here is the VPC ID. I know it's not well labeled. We should probably put a dash ID on it or something like that, but this is the value that we need. So this is an export, this is an output that we are assigning an export name to, and then we can refer to this somewhere else. So in order to pull it into the template, what we do, so if we go here, here's our Lattice. We're going to say VPC stack. Actually, I can copy this from up here. So we'll just do this, plunk that there, and then add it to our parameter overrides, pass that value in, and then what it'll do is it'll pull in the ID of the VPC and inject that in as an input in this template. Okay, I think that's all we need. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what did we do? We added VPC Association. Oh, geez. Every once in a while, it's like my brain forgets how to use lazy git. I don't know why that is. Feature, added VPC Association. The weird part is, if you see what I did there, if I back out and do it again, it's like a reset in my head that seems to work. I don't get it. Okay, so let's look at our pipeline again. It's already running. Let's close a couple of these tabs down. And then if we go here, there's our new change set. Okay, so all this is doing is associating the service with our VPC. While we're waiting, if we pull up the VPC console again, assuming that I haven't messed anything up, if we look at the service network, there's our service association, there's our VPC association. So it's work in progress. Oops, wrong thing. I want to go here. Oh, did it roll back? Did I do something wrong? Oh, that's weird. No, it's still there. It's just taking its time, I guess. Okay, there we go. Now, we've got a VPC association. So as I've said a couple times here, a service network has one or more services associated to it. It's a sort of a logical container or a logical boundary for those services. You cannot access those services until the service network is associated to something. In this case, it's a VPC. Now, if I've done everything correctly, if we go back to the EC2 console, we should get a little bit further here. So we're going to connect to this. And we're going to run, oh, I didn't grab the host name, the domain name. So let's grab that. So Lattice service. Here's our domain name. Go back over here. Okay, we got a little further. See that? We got an error, but before this, we were getting network not reachable, right? But now that we've made that association, the service network is associated with the VPC. And in our example here, that EC2 instance is in that VPC. We have a path to it now. So Lattice is handling the routing to that 169 network. Now it's interesting that we got a 502. A 502 generally means, see this line right here? I know it's a little small, but this guy right here, 502 response. Generally that means that the traffic was routed successfully through, so from our EC2 instance through the service network to the service, but the service didn't respond back in time. Usually a 502 is like the service, the destination didn't return in time, or it sent like a reset or a finish command before sending anything else back. I'm not quite sure. I wasn't expecting that to be honest. I was expecting to see hello from Lattice or whatever it is. We can go over to Lambda and we can open this guy up. Let's just do, we didn't do a test when we recreated this, so that works, right? That's kind of what I was expecting. If we go to monitor and we go to CloudWatch logs, and here we go. Yeah, I don't know if it actually made it here yet, because what time is this? This is 12:31. That's like a minute ago. Let's see if anything else pops in here. Yeah, I don't think it's quite working yet. Let's run another curl command from here. We only have one path, so everything should route to that Lambda function. And we get an immediate 502 response. Okay, so earlier in the stream, I'm not sure if I said it on mute or off mute. I talked about one of the benefits, one of the nice features of Lattice is you have multiple layers of protection, right? You can layer security in, but we can also layer logging. So maybe this is a good time to talk a little bit about the logging. So we're at the service network layer and see this, see this here, access logs. So you can go here and you can turn on service. We're going to turn on service access logs, and we're going to write them to CloudWatch log groups. But you can see you've got other options. You can write it to S3 or you can use Firehose. Okay. We're going to do this through code, but I just wanted to show you this in the console. So let's close that up. I'm going to run. Let's see. Okay, so let's run another test just from the console. Test. Yay, that works, right? We go here, you'd expect to see some change. Yeah, okay, so there's the next one. And you know what we could do actually, just to see something a little more in that code? Let's make one other change. We're going to go in here. We're just going to say print event. Okay, so we'll get, actually, let's do both. Let's do this. We'll do print F. Okay. And then we're going to do, whoops, printf context. Look at that. I like Q. Helps it, knows exactly what we wanted. So this will just give us some output in CloudWatch logs. So let's run the test again. Oops, what did I do wrong? Print, what did I do? Print. Isn't it printf? thought it was printf. Oh, duh. It's like this. There we go. That should do the trick. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so now if we look at the logs, there's our event object, and here's our context object. So this will just give us a little more information. We can see how this is working. So if we look at this is 1235. If I go back over here, where's our EC2 instance here? And we just smack at it a couple times, okay? All 502s. Let's see if we have anything after 1235. It might be in the same Lambda instance, so we'll check in a second, but nothing new here. Nothing new here. So that means to me, it's not getting through. You know how we set up our service, associated service network, set up our target groups and our rules and stuff. It's almost like it's not getting through there, because I would have expected to see at least something in here, or ideally the hello from Lambda or hello from Lattice, whatever we put in the print statement. So let's get the logging enabled. That might give us a little more insight into what's happening. So we're going to use, I like CloudWatch logs for this. I like CloudWatch logs because most of the time I'm just in CloudWatch log insights, and I just can run queries and stuff in there to quickly troubleshoot things. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to go up here and we're going to say add modules. Let's just call it monitoring. And CWS, so CloudWatch logs YAML. Okay. And before I go over here, we're going to cheat again for this. I'm going to yank this file and we're going to put it here. Okay, so that's fine. We're not going to need really any of this. Right. This. Oh, I thought there was an output section. Okay, so there's that. So let me just grab the CloudWatch logs setup. Okay, so what we basically need to do is we need to create a log group, and we're going to actually create a couple. Okay, so I'm going to say demo Lattice service network log group. Okay? And this is just AWS logs log group. And we're not going to get too fancy with this. Normally, I would encrypt this like with KMS. Not with KMS, sorry, with a customer managed key, a CMK. Okay. So in RL, use a CMK to protect your logs at rest. Okay. It is encrypted by default, but it uses an Amazon managed key, which is maybe fine for what you want. But in a lot of cases, my customers want more control over those keys and they have to show governance and compliance. We're not going to worry about that today. Okay. But we'll just make a little note there. We're going to say log group name. We're going to construct this as we go. So I'll just put it to do attention in days. For us, I'm going to hard code this. There's some weird things here, requirements. Like it's not just 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like, well, you can look at it in the documentation. There are specific allowed values. Actually, let me show you. So if I go here, retention in days. Excuse me. I'm going to just say, I don't want to keep these logs around because it's just our demo environment, but I could do something like this. Values. All right. So I could say 1, 3. I'm just going to do a few. 5, not base 64. I don't know what that is. I did it again. 5. and then we'll just randomly pick another one. Most of the folks that I deal with might do something. I've lost the ability to use my keyboard. 365 days. You keep your logs for a year. All right. We're not going to worry about that today. So that's that. And then what I can do down here is just use a ref. Okay. So we'll say ref retention in days. It does support tagging. So we're going to continue to use the tags that we've used. Oh boy. The tags that we've used already. So it's 9 lines here that we've grabbed a bunch of times. Paste them here. Oh, and you know what? I'm just going to use the same name structure that we've been using here. Okay? With a slight difference. Right? So we're going to name all this, and I'm going to get rid of the dash here. Service network wait a second. How do I want to do this? Okay, so I'm gonna do some prefixing on this. I like to do prefixes and stuff because that way I can search for things later. So I'm gonna do, actually, let's have a look before we set this up. Let's actually go to CloudWatch Logs. Go to log groups. We probably have, see how AWS prefixes these. So we're gonna use something similar to that. So we're gonna go back to IDE, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna say /CFN Wednesday, right? CloudFormation Wednesdays, service network. I think that's fine. I think that'll do the trick. Okay. And I'm gonna duplicate this. And I'm going to call this demo lattice service, right? Because remember, we've got the service network and the service. So we can have logging at both levels. Now this, I want to use outputs here because then I can take these outputs and use them as inputs on the other side. The question is, if we jump back to our VPC Lattice definition. I'll open this up in CloudFormation. Just give me a second to find what I want. If we look at solutions, oh, I had it open. No, that's not quite what I want. If we look at the service network, okay, and where is this? This is another example. See this here? It's not defined in the service network itself. You basically create your service network and then associate it with a log. I wanted to have a look at this. So destination ARN, the ARN of the destination. So what we need is the ARN of our CloudWatch Log Group. So that's important because that's what we need to pass in to the outputs on the other side. Okay, so that means we jump back over here. Okay, so we have to create two outputs. So we're going to say demo lattice log group. And then we're going to say the value, we need the ARN. Okay, so it's a get attribute. So we're going to say get attribute demo log dot ARN. And then we're going to say export name. And I'm going to borrow from this just because we were looking this earlier on. I'm just going to take that. Whoops. I'm going to take this line. And I'm going to put it as the name here, right? So let's say put. And then we're just going to change this. So I'm going to say service network. Let's do service net. Service net. I'm going to say service network log group dash ARN. Okay. And then we have to duplicate this for demo lattice service log group. Okay. See if we can cut and paste some of this stuff. Save us a few keystrokes. Demo, like that one. Service network. So this is just service log group. All right. So that's that part. We're going to do this in steps just in case there's a typo somewhere. And I'm going to do, okay, put, say, monitoring. And what do we call this? CWL. And then we have to add that to our provider. And I think I'm going to grab something that's not enormous because we don't really have to pass anything into this at this point. Oops, what did I do? Oh, I want 14 lines. Okay, we're going to say, okay. And we'll leave those parameter overrides. I don't think there was anything else we needed. We set default values for that. Yeah, okay. So this does. All right, so there's our CloudWatch Log Group. Ah. I'm calling change set. Oh, remember? Yeah, okay. I copied something that didn't have the application set up in it that we used in our other templates. So see this right here? I was a little over aggressive with this. So I need, see this line? Let's just go put, whoops. Okay. So that'll pass in the missing application value. Try this again. Looks maybe a little better. Let's close down some of these windows again. Okay, there we go. So it's creating the two log groups that we want, one for our service network and one for the service. Okay, so that's good. If we go to CloudWatch, go to log groups, we should have our new guys. Yeah, so we can just search for CFN when. There we go. 1 day retention. So now what we need to do is we need to associate the service network and the service with these CloudWatch log groups. Okay, so if we go back over here, this guy. And then I just have to find the new type definition. It's access log subscription. All right. So what we're going to do is there's our service network. There's our service. I think what we're going to have to put some comments in here because this is going to get, it's already pretty busy. So we're going to say service network, CloudWatch log. Nah, I don't like that. Log group. Okay. So then we're going to say AWS VPC Lattice log subscription. Now, what's it need? It needs the destination ARN, which we already know is the ARN of, in our case, the CloudWatch Log Group. But I'm going to just do that. It also needs the resource identifier. Here, let me show you this because there's a couple extra values that I have to get familiar with. Okay, so we've got the resource identifier, destination ARN, the supported or CloudWatch log groups. Can you, okay, yeah, and we've got the ARN there. The ARN, the ID or ARN of the service network or service. So this is just, in our case, the service network. And then we have to just define what it is. Okay, so that's not too bad, I don't think. So this becomes the resource identifier is ref demo lattice service network, this guy. Our service network log type is service. And then it supports tagging. I love it. All this stuff supports tags. Don't forget about your tags. Super valuable. Okay, so there's that. So let's put a couple comments in here. Just so we know what we're doing. Defining the service network. Okay. Associating the service network with a CWL CloudWatch log group. Right? So just for later, because I don't know about you, but I'll look at this in 2 days and have no recollection of ever creating it. So we want to pull this in with an import value. And again, I'm going to borrow from here. Right? So we're just going to paste this here. Destination ARN. And we're going to change this up. So this is going to be CWL stack. Right? And then whatever we called it, which I don't remember already. So if we scroll down here, I'm just going to copy this again. Oops. Service. Right? So just yank that, put it here so I can see what I got to type. I'm sure there's a better way to do this in Vim, but I don't know all these shortcuts. So service, network, there we go. Right? And we've got to add that up here. So we're going to call this, oh, we've already got stack parameters here. Are we using VPC stack somewhere? We are, okay. So now I'm just going to say CWL stack. We're going to do it exactly the same way. Now, if I go back up here, now we need to go here and say CWL stack. Let's do it like this. Right? This should just be CWL. And then oops. All right. Perfect. So let's do this. Where am I going? Yeah, back to back to here. Oh, okay, that's good. Here. Oh, got logged out again. Wait a sec. Oh, it's not that one. It's this. There's our new change set. And yeah, it's just, again, the log association. Perfect. If we go to VPC and we go to our service networks, grab this one. And if we go monitoring, service logs are enabled to this CloudWatch Log Group. And nothing written here yet. Okay, so let's get the service associated with its log group. And really, we can just copy what we created earlier. Okay, so if we go back to, I'm going to close this guy. That's just going to get confusing. If we go, that guy we're done with, this guy here. Okay, so I don't know what I tried to spell there. Defining. So all we're going to do is we're going to kind of copy this one. So in lines, we're going to plunk that right here. So demo lattice service will kind of follow the same naming standard, right? Service log group. This will be service log group. This will be service. The rest of it should be the same. Let's put in sort of the same comments. Okay, so there we go. We create a service. And then here, what did we call? Associating the service network with a CloudWatch log group. So we're going to say, we're going to use the exact same associating the service with a CloudWatch log group. Right? Something like that. That'll be enough for us to remember. All right, so there's our lattice definition. Hopefully by the time we get back here, there's a change set. There it is. And all it's doing is adding the other service group, or sorry, log group. Oh, what did I do? Service network log type is only applicable for service network resource. Okay. How do we do that? Because I thought it was only the two types. See here? Access log subscription. Let's see, read this. Enables log to listen to. Is there a different log type that I have to use? Because see here, service network log type. Oh, where'd it go? Here. It can be service or resource. And what was the error we got? It's only applicable for service network resource. Do I not have to define it maybe? It's not required. Doesn't really tell us much about it, does it? Are there any other values that we could potentially use here? Doesn't look like it. Well, yeah, let's go back over here and let's just wing it. And we're going to go like this. It says that it's not required, but does it have a default value? It doesn't. I don't know. Let's try it. What's the worst that could happen, right? It's just another error. Oh, now it really doesn't like it. Oh, yeah. More patience. So see what's happened. It hasn't finished rolling back our changes yet. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say pipeline. I'm going to run it again. Perfect. Let's see if this makes any difference. Delete, delete, delete. That's definitely not what I wanted. What happened there? This is why change sets are helpful, right? Not a big deal in CloudFormation Wednesdays, right? If I accidentally nuked this, not a problem. But you can imagine if you weren't using change sets in important environments, the pain that you might set yourself up for. What did I do? So here's provider. I literally deleted one line. What happened? CloudWatch logs. Provider. Okay, that is an interesting one. Let's go back over here. Have another look at this. Okay, I'm looking at Lattice. Remove. Based on what? This sure looks like this. Oh, it totally is not the same template. See how we've only got our service network, our service, and our service association? Something happened in that. Okay, hold on. Let's do this. Sometimes I find when all else fails, we're going to do, okay, first thing first, let's look at Lattice provider. So network, Lattice provider. Service association, target group. So it has all of this stuff here. Let's just save this. Okay, that's fine. Sometimes I'll do something like this. Actually, I'm gonna put it in the template itself. I've had this happen before. A comment to force a new deploy. Okay. Let's try this again. Go back over here. Go back to our pipeline. What is happening? Okay, so we should have another change set. There it is, 2104. There we go. I don't know. I don't know what we did, but the old comment did the trick. So we're trying to associate our service with our log group. Let's try it again. There we go. That's better. Okay. So VPC. We want to go to Lattice Services now. And if we highlight this and we go to monitoring, we've got that associated now too. So we've got 2 layers of monitoring now. Let's do one last thing, and then I think we'll call it a night. Well, I want to do 2 things. So let's go back to our test instance. We're going to connect to this. And we're going to run that same curl command again, which will, let me grab the domain name. Oh, sorry, not here. The services themselves, Lattice service. Okay, this is the domain name. Curl -v. Okay, there's our 502 again. Still doesn't make sense to me, but if we go back over here and go CloudWatch logs, right? Go to log groups. Okay. There's nothing in our service. There's nothing in our service network. So there's something we don't have wired up here correctly. And I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but we've been at it for 2 hours. I think we're going to call it a night. I know we botched the first half an hour there with some audio issues, but at least it wasn't 2 hours of no audio. It's good to be back, and I'll be back next Wednesday. We'll work on this a little more and see if we can get the rest of the environment built out. So thanks for joining me tonight, folks, and we'll see you all later. Bye for now.